Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of Benny's Big Talk. I'm here with a man called Brick.
Hello.
Hi, Brick.
Hi, Benny.
Hey, thank you so much for being on here, Brick. You know, that is definitely your real name, right?
Oh, yeah. 100%.
You look like a brick to me, honestly. You're built
Yes.
like a brick, I think.
That's right. That's why my parents named me that.
Yeah, they knew what they were doing when they did that, I think. Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get into too many specifics, but yeah, but Brick and I used to work together. Brick's a great guy, very intelligent, and Brick's moving away soon, and so we thought we'd get him on the podcast while we had the chance. And here we are for the first episode. So yeah, briefly, this is a podcast where we talk about big things. We talk about the deepest things in your heart's deepest desires, fears. We talk about your hobbies, your passions, the things you love, the things you hate. And we'll do history, politics, philosophy, music, culture, whatever. Anything that comes to mind. All right. And yeah, so to start off with, man, I just came back from New York City this weekend, my first time there.
Nice.
And you're from New York City, or at least close by Long Island.
Yep.
All right. And I was expecting to hate it, to be honest. I heard it was just like a dirty city, and everyone was angry and mean and fast. And, if you couldn't keep up, they'd kick you out and there'd be trash everywhere. And it would smell like, pizza and urine and all this stuff. This is what I heard. Right.
Yeah.
And I came there expecting I would like just do it to have done it.
Yeah.
And, man, was I so wrong?
Really? Okay.
Like
Good.
my first impression. So we flew into Newark, right? And then I took the train into Penn Station.
Right.
And my first impression was kind of in line with what I had thought. So I went into the bathroom, and there were only 2 stalls, and I had to go. And I was waiting, and these guys kept jumping in front of me as I was waiting for the bathroom. I was like, come on, man. But they would look in there, and they would look kind of like a little like, whoa, but they went in anyways. So I was kind of curious what was in there, And so, but 2 guys went in, they did the same thing in front of me. They cut in front of me. And then I get inside there, and I realized there was just a pile of crap just like above the level of the toilet seat. And these guys had just been like contributing to the pile.
No.
And I was like, I ain't doing that. And then in the next stall over, there was a guy. He was drinking water out of the toilet bowl and just screaming.
No way.
He's like, ah, and he would just drink some more and like, ah, and so I was like, I was right. Clearly this is all New York is. And so I was a little scared. But then, but then I walk up out of Penn Station. And I see the buildings.
Yep.
And I'm just floored, man.
Yeah.
You're
right in the heart of it there.
Yeah. Walking out into the city in the middle of everything, and I see the Empire State Building up there. I see Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
It's cold as hell. It's like 25 degrees out. The wind's blowing.
Oh, yeah.
I don't wear underwear, so it was cold as hell, to be honest. Extra cold. And man, I was just so struck by it immediately, just like all these like great achievements around me, like and then we just started walking up through Times Square, trying out some food. I waited an hour to try my first bagel at a little Jewish deli place, Russ and Daughters, which was like Anthony Bourdain's favorite place.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And he just got an egg bagel with plain schmear.
Oh, good.
After an hour.
Nice. Yeah.
Took a bite out of that thing. Oh my God, man. Oh my God.
I love the egg bagel. Bagel with cream cheese.
Just like a perfect chew, great texture, but fluffy, but chewy. It's so delightful, man. And I got one of those black and white cookies they do.
Oh.
Got a latke, and
Nice.
and for that moment, I was just like, I got to eat all the food. So I just did like a little food tour, went down, got some pizza, got some cheesecake, and we just kept moving down to the Battery, and
Oh, really?
and we walked from like the Bowery area all the way down to the Battery to see the Statue of Liberty and stuff, and then walked to Brooklyn Bridge, had some dinner and stuff like that, but
nice.
And then next day, like Central Park, the Mets, and Empire State Building, all that stuff, and man, it was just an incredibly beautiful place, and everyone was so nice. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
You know, everyone said they're mean. That's not true. It's not true at all.
It's not always true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are mean people. There's, if you get 10 million people together, some of them are going to be mean.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
natural, you know. But like if we were lost, like someone would immediately give you directions. You know, like we were in
Oh,
the
yeah.
subway trying to figure out where to go, and this guy was like, "Oh, you go down the stairs here, go across the tracks. All right, then you're gonna go take the green 3 uptown." And it's just like I would have been screwed without that guy. You know, like, and he could have just laughed at us as we
could have.
just huddled around in misery and didn't know where to go. You know, but yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it is a nice place. It's especially coming from Florida. You hear, all those stereotypes about New York, right? About,
Yeah.
Everyone's mean and
Because they're all coming down here too, and so like it's
Yeah.
we're all like they're coming down and they're increasing our property values and taking our jobs and stuff like that.
Right.
I'll bring that mic a little bit closer. I'd say just a tiny bit. That's good. Let's see.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's
This is
that?
that sounds fantastic.
All
If you
right,
can hear
good.
that low, deep guttural voice you got there,
yes.
sounds beautiful. Hell yeah.
Awesome.
Hell yeah. So.
All right.
Yeah, that was my first week in there, and I'm planning on going back sometime in a few months.
Awesome.
I want to check out because Central Park was very barren, and the trees were dead.
Oh,
but
in the winter, yes.
yeah, but I mean it was gorgeous. I loved it so much. It was such a crazy difference going from like the concrete jungle right into just trees and lakes and.
How far into Central Park did you go?
We did the whole thing, man.
Really?
All the way up to that reservoir in the north end.
Yep.
So we started at Columbus Circle.
Yep.
And we went, we kind of went east along the lower boundary of the park, so like a half a mile, because we wanted to have breakfast at Tiffany's, like in the old movie, because you go to the Tiffany store and we ate in front of it and stuff like that. And so then we go in and walked up to Bethesda Terrace, the thing in the middle there.
Yep.
We did the zoo, Central Park Zoo.
Oh, yep.
And
Awesome.
they got some cool stuff there, like grizzly bear, penguins, man, snow leopard, and it's pretty nice. I was a little disappointed because none of the animals from Madagascar were at the Central Park Zoo.
Oh, yeah.
There was no lion, there was no big, big hippo, no
They
giraffe.
escaped.
Yeah, fair point, actually. I haven't seen the third movie, so I don't know if they ever come back. But fair enough. Maybe they used to have them, and then they escaped, and now they're in Africa or somewhere in Madagascar, man.
Right.
Just living their life, just Ben Stiller, David Schwimmer, or whoever else they were. I don't know, Chris Rock. But yeah, I just watched that again because I was like, I got to compare reality, to the movie because that was my idea of the Central Park Zoo. Yeah, it's not as big. It's pretty cool though.
It is. It's pretty small, but yeah, it's very nice to go visit for sure. Yeah, I love it. What did you think of the pizza compared to like, let's say down here you would get a New York style pizza?
I mean, it was. I'll be honest with you. I had one slice of pizza while I was there. That was it.
Okay.
Shameful. All right. I wanted more, but my wife's feet were dying. I was like, I gotta stay. I need more pizza. Like I got room in my belly. And it needs to be filled with pizza, and that was the plan. But, so I only had one slice. There's a place called Prince Street Pizza in Nolita, and it was great. It was fantastic. It was like a margarita pizza kind of thing. So like a little bit of mozzarella, tomato sauce, and the basil, something like that. And it was fantastic. It was a huge slice. We just ate it out in the street, just fold it up and eat it. And the crust was great. It was soft. It was thin crust, which I've never liked before, but that was because like normally it's like super hard and just like nasty crust you don't want to eat, but like this was it was soft, doughy, it's good, man. The ingredients were great. They used like real olive oil and some and good tomatoes. Like it was good. I've been crapping on New York pizza for a while, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
I want to apologize for that. I used to say that it was a good cardboard box to put a real pizza in, but
Damn.
yeah, it's scathing. It's scathing. But it goes to show it's a great definition of prejudice because I was like, I'm not gonna like New York. New York pizza's stupid. All right. All the people there are mean and rude and fast and angry. And I'm just like, that's not for me.
Yeah.
But I go and I'm like, wow, this is my place. I love this. And if I had $10,000 a month to spend on rent, I would totally be here. I'd be living this life. But as it stands.
It's a special place. It's a special place for sure.
Yeah, I gotta go back in the spring. Maybe see it with some nice trees. Oh,
it's beautiful in the spring. I would recommend that.
Yeah. What's the best time of year you think?
I like spring because it's not too hot and all the trees blossom. There's flowers everywhere.
Uh huh.
Very nice. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the weather's just perfect. New York's spring, it's awesome.
Okay, so spring, I think that's a good time to go. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Assuming I get some gainful employment here soon. I'm unemployed, by the way. That was a new thing this week. I
Oh,
don't know if
yeah.
Brick wants to talk about that a little bit or not, but
Why not? Let's do it.
we're in a little spot. So yeah,
Yeah.
we worked for a company that got a little bad,
A little
and
bit.
we stopped caring, to be honest, and they. It was time to leave, basically,
Yep.
morals did not align with the way we felt as human beings. And we were like, it's time for us to get out of here.
That's right.
So, yeah, as it is, both of us are unemployed, except Brick here's got a job lined up in New York. He's going to be
That is,
set.
yep. Yep.
Very nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah. What kind of engineering you're going to be doing? I forget.
Same as what we were doing in the same industry. I just won't be doing design. I'll be doing estimating.
Oh, okay. So more paperwork.
Yeah.
Oh, I got you.
Lots of spreadsheets.
Oh, spreadsheets. You gotta love them.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
tilt that thing this way a bit. It's like, oh yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, thanks.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Except it's falling over now. Yeah. Don't worry. Yeah, it's like wherever it's not
Okay.
falling over. We're having.
All right.
So this is what we call a low budget podcast, right? To begin with here, and this is what's called doing our best.
Doing our best. Yeah.
Doing our best.
This is
Except
my
it's mini
first time
Gong.
on a podcast.
This is your first time on a podcast?
Yep.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
This is my first time on a podcast as well.
Nice.
This is it. Yeah, this is a new experience for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
We're virgins of the podcast business. Well, we'll see if our first time was memorable or not.
Yes.
But I got a gong.
Nice. I like that.
I know there's not much to say, but my mom got me this for Christmas. And normally, I don't know what I would do with it, but I realized, wow, look at this. Look at that.
That's pretty cool.
It's perfect.
I like it.
Yeah, I never thought I would need it, but here it is. The
Yeah.
gong that I've always needed in my life.
Yeah.
I used to when I was in high school, and I had like a music class, and I just screwed off and I didn't do anything, But I kept collecting drum equipment, and to put into his back room so I could create the ultimate drum sets. And so I would sneak stuff underneath like the desk, like while the band director wasn't looking, and I would hide stuff in my jacket and stuff like that, and I would be gathering everything back there, and eventually I had the entire room stuffed with a gigantic drum set. And I had like 20 toms and cymbals like mounted up around me.
Nice.
I had like tens of thousands of dollars worth of stuff, and I had a gong, which if you know what a normal gong is like, it's like 3 feet in diameter.
It's
or something.
huge,
It's huge.
yeah.
So I had a gong mounted above me, and I had a big mallet. It was go boom above me while I would play, and. Oh man, yeah. So in senior year, I would just screw around for like 2 hours a day. I found a good gap there with like lunch and like this other like chorus class I was in. I didn't do shit in, so like I managed to just like play drums and screw around in there for a couple hours,
Nice.
and until they found out about it, and they shut it down. They took away
Someone-
my drum set.
Yeah.
It's always something like that, man. Someone's got to ruin the fun.
Yeah.
Someone's always got to do that.
Somebody always finds out,
Yeah.
messes with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Terrible.
because they're like, you know what? People are having fun over there. Can't allow that. That's just
Yeah.
not permissible, So uh, it is what it is, man. But here we are, and so hopefully we're moving on to bigger and better things.
Yes.
But
Yes, absolutely.
I did want to have a little discussion, about faith and stuff with you,
Okay.
because you're someone who you're a man of faith.
Yes.
And I have faith in certain things, but not in the same way that you do. And I wanted to discuss kind of the nature of that, how we developed that in our lives, and what we think like the value of faith is, and whether it should be along the lines of a deity of Christianity or other religions, or it should be faith in ideas or something like that.
Right.
So from my perspective. And first, I will help you fix this mic stand. So I'll tell you. So you want to make sure that the one of the legs is in line with the top one. That's the secret. Is it in line with the top one?
Now it is.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. All right. You guys, all the two people listening, both you guys, I love you. And you guys are experiencing the technical difficulties of the first run of a podcast. So,
Awesome.
be privileged to be a part of this, and watch us struggle with it, Yeah. But all right. So,
Well, yeah.
resuming the discussion. Okay. So,
Mm-hmm.
from my perspective, all right, I don't believe in any established human religions.
Yeah.
All right. I do have faith in the idea of objectivity in some context, and I think that you can reach something close to objective truth with repeated experimentation in a kind of scientific way, in an empirical way. And I think that that's the
Yeah.
only thing that you can truly have faith in is something that can be repeatable and testable and verifiable, at least to the level of a theory. And anything
Yeah.
else, I think, is just conjecture and something designed to kind of comfort you. But I also don't think I don't think that it has no value,
Yeah.
and I do think that there's value in faith.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like to hear your perspective on whether you think that's faith in God is something that you believe as empirically real, or something you believe is something in your heart and an idea more than anything.
Okay, that's an interesting question. Well, yeah, I'm an Orthodox Christian.
Hmm.
I was raised as what would you say? I guess just a non-denominational Protestant.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I was raised going to church a lot. Every Sunday, my mom would take me, so it was something that was kind of seeded in me, I guess.
Hmm.
Since I was a child, um, and I think that has a big mm, part of it. If you are raised with that kind of ideology, it's going to stick with you sometimes. I think overwhelmingly it probably will. If you're not, it'll be harder to come to
Hmm.
some sort of faith. But as regards to your question, is it something that's empirically true? I mean, I think so, but can I give you the empirical evidence that you want to prove it to you?
Well,
No.
I think, yeah, I mean, it's going to be difficult by my standards, of course,
Right.
but, obviously I do think of myself as being able to be convinced, by people's explanations of things.
Okay.
I'm not a rock in that sense, or a brick like you,
Yeah.
but I, but,
Yeah.
but I think that's, I am curious if you have any, and again, I think it's immaterial, the empirical evidence of God, because it's
Okay.
clearly not about that,
Yeah.
at least for me. And I think that the distinction of it not being about that is very important, because I think that it's
Yeah.
a moot point. And I think
Yeah.
anyone who tries to say that there is absolutely inexorable proof that there is a God, I think is obviously just is talking out their ass a bit. But
Okay.
I don't think it's just from a place of dishonesty. I think that it's a place of you need to confirm what you feel inside you in a empirical way, especially because there have been scientists, philosophers, very intelligent people,
Yeah.
and there continue to be who have a very strong faith. And I think that
That's true.
I think that a lot of cases it informs their intelligence and their empirical view of the world in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Philosophers like Kierkegaard, who was very, very religious, but
Yes.
he also analyzed, religion, and he
Right.
found that there was this immutable thing, this also intangible thing that was just beyond our understanding,
Hmm.
and this is called God, and this is something it is a valuable part of the scientific method, because there is always a mystery there,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
But yeah,
And
go ahead.
yeah, you mentioned Kierkegaard. One of his biggest things in his writings was his concept of the leap of faith.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
It's the faith is something. Faith is something that you can't necessarily prove to other people. It's a personal thing. Faith is something that um you take a leap of faith.
right.
It's yeah. It doesn't necessarily rely on proof. It's just this is what I choose to believe in.
And I wonder, like, so if you take the leap of faith, for me, from the perspective I come from in my mental process, I wonder what is the utility of the leap of faith,
Yeah.
and I see in a generally is what it gives you is a a comfort in the face of the overwhelming fear of mortality
Yeah.
is obviously everybody knows that's if you're afraid of death, the idea of heaven is a nice idea, of course, or
Yeah.
any kind of afterlife, is better than just literally nothing, and
Right.
so that's an aspect of it. And there's utility in the feeling that there's someone that there is a value to your life beyond the immediate trappings of it, that there is something greater at work. And
Yeah.
so I understand that that is valuable. And then the community that comes along with religion, you know.
Right. Yeah,
So,
for sure. Community is a big thing, and the utility, like you mentioned. I personally feel like faith has improved my life.
yeah.
Before I was, well, like I said, I was brought up religious as a child. I fell away from it for a long time. I didn't care about it. I didn't think about it much. But then I came to start to feel like my life was going in the wrong directions. I was doing things that harmed me, made me feel bad about myself and about how I treat other people. And I was been in a bad place, and coming back to faith in God, in Christianity, I noticed many improvements, many things that just made my life a lot better, to be honest with you. Happier, able to treat others better as well as myself. Yeah, so that would be the utility for me.
So how did it lead you to those better behaviors directly? Was it through reading scripture, or was it through a belief in something powerful, or was it just maybe like the fear of punishment in a simple way, or just the idea that someone's watching your behavior and your actions, or what led you to better behavior from becoming religious?
Well, I think it starts, let's say it starts, yeah, you think if you believe in God, you feel like maybe you're disappointing your creator, right,
Yeah.
with your behaviors. And then what really did it on top of that for me, especially in Orthodox Christianity, it's similar to Catholicism in some ways, one being confession. So I have a priest who is like my spiritual father. I go to him for confession. And if you do something that needs to be confessed, it's like having that. It holds you accountable,
Yeah.
so you have to go speak to him and tell him like, oh, this is what's going on, this is what I'm going through right now. And it makes you stay mindful of the things that you're working on in your personal or spiritual life, I guess.
Yeah. And you
Yeah.
make an actual accounting of your actions,
Yep.
and when you recount them in the confessional,
Hmm.
it's like an instant replay of your behaviors over the past week or whatever. And so,
Yeah.
but oftentimes people will go years without fully examining their behavior, or maybe their entire lifetime,
Yeah.
because
Right.
no one holds them accountable. It's certainly not themselves,
Right.
right? So
Right.
I do see the value of it in that sense.
Yeah.
And I do think that, from my perspective, even though I try and hold myself accountable to my behaviors, I recognize that the moral system that I have within me it's definitely has its origin in Judeo-Christian in
Yep.
morals,
Right. Right.
and even though my parents did not make me go to church, and that was a big driver in me not becoming religious later on, even though I
Right.
did try to be briefly. I have tried at times in my
Okay.
life,
Yeah.
and I definitely did feel a sense of belief, but maybe it was something I perceived as belief, but it wasn't. I don't think it was ever true. And
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, but at the same time, it can go the other way. My wife was raised in religion. She went to church every Sunday,
Yeah.
and now she believes in nothing.
Right. Yeah.
And that her reaction from it was she didn't like people telling her something which was clearly what she saw as a lie, and a story,
Okay.
and then kind of enforcing her to live her life a certain way because of that. As I
Yeah.
understand it, I don't want to speak for her, but that's
Yeah.
what I've
Yeah.
understood.
I
And so
gotcha.
you can have a different reaction one way or the other from being raised religious
Yeah.
or being raised non-religious,
That's true.
and I think that if I could find something that I could hold on to, that spoke to me in a way that's made me feel like there was a truth to it, then yeah, maybe I could connect to religion. But as it stands, I see it as any other mythology. But I do respect what Christians do, and specifically in your case, I speak to Christians, of course, and
Yeah,
and I respect a lot of what Muslims do as well, and
sure.
which is something that is kind of lacking understanding, at least in this country, and especially in the last 20 years. I mean, there's a lot of sentiment against that, and I think that that's really a shame.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, especially knowing some people we know recently have met in our job, fantastic, amazing people,
yeah,
that
absolutely.
yeah, and so there is value in faith,
I think
but
so.
where does it come from? And I think, I want to ask you, like, do you think you will ever need to have an empirical understanding of what that faith is in your life, or will it always be able to be kind of like an inner voice for you?
I right now, I don't think that I will ever need that, but I don't know what the future holds. Um, all I would say is, God willing, I will continue to hold the faith.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, and I appreciate it, and I see it as something to study rather than something to scoff at. I had an edgy atheist phase for a
Yeah.
while,
Hmm.
because when you first kind of see through it, you kind of feel
Yeah.
it's like an accomplishment to be like, yeah,
Oh,
they're
I
fucking
know.
stupid, man. Like, I can't believe they believe in this thing that's
Right.
not real. You can't see it.
Yeah.
Why would you believe in something you can't see? Flying spaghetti monster, etc.
Right.
I mean, and so I had that phase,
Yeah.
and it was fun while it lasted, but
Yeah.
it's just so. For one, it's a foregone conclusion, man. We know that you can't see a god.
Hmm.
If you could, then
Right.
the question would be answered. We wouldn't have this debate ever,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
But obviously, it's something I think that comes within you. Maybe it's something you call your intuition. And if you have good
Perhaps.
intuition, you should trust that. And a lot of people don't trust their guts, And if maybe
Right.
if your estimation of what your gut is telling you tells you that it's coming from somewhere intelligent,
Right.
and somewhere powerful, maybe you'll
Yeah.
trust that gut a little bit more,
Yeah.
and you'll rely on your faith. But your faith is within you, I think.
It is. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe you'll trust yourself more if you feel like these ideas and this your gut feelings come within you,
Hmm.
come from something
Yeah.
greater than yourself. So
Right.
I think that's utility.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And I wanted to mention, you mentioned, it's something to study. There's certainly lots of reading you could do, and I think some of the most interesting reading would be the early church fathers, especially the earliest apologists, like Saint Justin Martyr, Saint Athanasius, Saint Cyril. These are people from the first, second, third centuries who, they wrote apologetics, defense of the faith, from
Yeah.
that early on, just right after the time of Christ, basically. So those are, a lot of interesting reading there.
So
Absolutely.
apologetics.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
explain the apologetics.
Okay. Apologetics comes from a Greek word, apologia. It means defense, basically. It's to be an apologist or to engage in apologetics. It's to make a defense. Typically in a religious context, to make a defense of your faith against people who would criticize it or
Okay.
argue against it. And so that's something that had been happening since those early first, second, third centuries. Yeah.
So these men who made these apologetics,
Hmm.
they would have these men lived in ancient Rome, right? After the Constantine period,
Yeah.
after the conversion.
Yeah. Those
Okay.
those ones in particular were Eastern fathers, so they would have lived. It was the Roman Empire, yeah, but the Byzantine Eastern side.
So what's their apologetics for the Christian faith? Were they contrasting it with the pagan the mythos of the Romans before, or what were they contrasting it with? What were they defending about Christianity?
Well, yeah, I think part of it was that for sure, but then it was also against some Jews,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
people who were criticizing Christ as the Messiah.
Okay.
I do believe there was some who were also You would know better than I. In ancient Rome, were there like atheist people who did not believe in gods? Because I believe there was an element of that as well.
It was there was like almost a universal belief in the gods and the
Okay.
ways that they affected daily life. I mean,
Okay.
everyone was very superstitious. Obviously, of course, there's always atheistic people. I mean,
Yeah.
we know of like Socrates is a big strong contender from the Athenian Greek side. You know,
Yeah.
he questions the immediate effects that gods had
Right.
on the workings of the world.
Yeah.
But in Rome, people were very superstitious, very religious.
Okay.
They had multiple gods for like doors, there were three door gods. There was one for like the hinges, and one for like the door frame, and then one
Okay.
for like the door itself.
Yeah.
And so they were full of superstitions. They did rituals, blood rituals, sacrifices, and
Yeah.
it was so yeah. Most people were extremely religious, but in the sense of they believed in what the clerics taught them, which was that that pantheon existed and that there was an individual god responsible for basically every aspect of life,
Yeah.
and you had to pray to each one to
Okay.
gain their favor, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, there was not a high degree of atheism, at least not that's attested.
Yeah.
But of course, it's kind of like a thing that, like autism, something that is just like it clearly has existed forever.
Yeah.
It just has not been reported as well because no one is really studying it or wants to talk about it in that sense or understands
Okay.
it. So that's what I would say. But I would say most people were religious.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I don't know if there was a huge, um, like in those apologist writings, I don't know if there was a huge appeal to non-theists
Yeah.
then. Yeah.
It would have been, well, yeah, non-theists. I mean, I would say the main objectors would be either pagan Romans
Right.
or it would be people from the Jewish faith, yeah, of course,
Yeah.
which were also monotheists, but yeah, they did not accept Jesus as a Messiah,
Yep.
of course,
Right.
and all the books of the New Testament meant nothing to them, of course, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and so it would be apologetics, in favor of the word of the New Testament,
Right.
and the teachings of Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the rift in Rome against the pagans, man, it was such a sudden change, because Christians had been persecuted for hundreds of years in
Yeah.
Rome, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
Constantine just says, Uno reverse, and then all of a sudden the pagans are persecuted. I mean,
Yep.
they turn all of their they turn all of their old temples and basilicae. They turn them into Christian churches and stuff. And it's
Yeah.
and almost like overnight. And
Yep.
then and that was the way it was. And for me, I'll always have a little bitterness. I mean, and just like just because. For me, I partially blame Christianity for the fall of the Roman Empire.
Okay.
I think that there's a role to be played there.
All right.
But I know there were a lot of factors. But for me, that was one of them. I don't know. Will you defend Christianity in this respect?
Uh, well, I
Gotcha.
mean, you're probably right. It did cause the it did play a role in the fall of the Roman Empire, most
Or at least the
likely.
changing of it.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
because the dissolution of the West
Yeah.
and the strength of the East, was it was like a restructuring of the empire. I mean, people called themselves Romans until the 1470s when the Ottomans
Right,
took Constantinople, but Byzantium was Rome.
Yeah.
And so in a sense the Christians maintained Rome
Right.
for 1200 years almost, so I can't really blame them in that sense,
Yeah.
but it wasn't the same, of course. But I think that the iconography changed. That was my biggest complaint, I think,
Oh, really?
because the arts went from the realism, of the sculpture work of the pagan Rome
Right.
into this this idealistic, kind of look, which was everyone's supposed to be perfect and godlike, and they
Yeah.
weren't very specific in their details and flaws and stuff. They just became these icons, which is ironic because you're not supposed to worship, the icons and stuff. But
Well,
yeah,
if you want to get into that discussion, we can talk about
all right,
that.
all right.
All right. Um, So the icons, especially in the Orthodox Church today, that art style of ancient Byzantine iconography that exists today in the Orthodox Church, those icons are well. So the thing you mentioned, not worshiping images, we would call those idols, right?
Idols, yeah, which is
Idols,
different
right?
from an icon.
It's different from an icon.
That's
And
right.
an icon it comes from the Greek word ikonos or something like
Yeah.
that, which just means image,
Hmm.
right? And so the icon is simply an image of the divine, of things that are actually holy. We don't see the icon, the image itself, as
Hmm.
something that's
It's
holy.
just a representation of something that's holy.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's just the image, just as we human beings are
But
images
is
made in the
it
image of
different
God.
in the sense that like you're not even supposed to like say like I think in the Jewish realm you're not supposed to say the true name of God, you know, like Yahweh or something like that. You know, I mean it's supposed to be. I
Hmm.
mean, is it something? I mean, it seems like they have different perspective on it. If you can
Yeah,
represent God in imagery, you know, but
right.
not worship that, you're
Yeah.
worshiping the what it represents, and of
Yeah.
course that would be the difference between icon and idol, right?
Right. Well, this comes back to them, the Jews, not believing in Christ, because before Christ came, God was just, unseen God.
Yeah.
But to us Christians, God became man in Jesus Christ, and then he was there for us to see. You could see him, you could touch him,
Hmm.
and he is the image of the Father, as we are the image of God, made in the image of God as well. So they would say, oh, you can't say his name, you can't make any images of him. And Muslims say the same thing because there's a similar,
Yeah.
ideology there. But for us Christians, we believe God became man in,
Hmm.
in Jesus Christ. And so because of that, images are okay because we've seen God.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's so and stuff like the communion is okay because you know he did give his body and blood, and so this is something that you can have an innate connection with by consuming it, right? You know, I mean,
Yeah.
because that is something that became real, and I guess that's a big part of why it spread so fast and so wide, is because you know other religions. I mean, okay, I mean we can't speak in an envelope like this, but
Hmm.
let's say compared to Judaism, you know, the Christians they profess to have actually seen their God and that he, you know, can present as a man like any one of us and therefore we're
Right.
made in that image.
Right.
And that's a powerful thing to connect yourself to,
Right.
right? You know, because
Yeah.
it gives you this feeling of greatness and connection to the eternal that otherwise we don't really have. We're not just like these little pathetic beings in the face of a God. We're one with God. We're the same, right? You know,
Um, I wouldn't say that we're the same, but
I'm the same. I'm a God. Bow down to
no,
me.
but
All right.
no, yeah,
But yeah,
no.
we're in the same image, and so
Exactly.
if God is a man, then that gives us an innate connection that other species cannot have. And I think that this
Yeah.
also led to the crazy, I wouldn't say crazy, but like ideas of manifest destiny, like this land and this people, we are chosen by God to take this land, and so we have a divine mission, and this of course comes out in the
Yeah, maybe.
Crusades and things like that, right?
Right.
So and for better or for worse, it gives you an idea that your will is the will of God's if you're made in that image, right? Yeah.
Sure.
He's like, I don't want to confirm or deny that because it sounds kind of bad.
Well, no,
uh,
I mean,
well, I mean, there were real reasons for the Crusades. I think that
oh
that's
yeah, I
something
was gonna mention.
that is something that history has been revised about a couple times in their opinions about it, but there were very very fast, swift, powerful conquests being made from the Muslim world into Europe,
Yeah, right,
and there was a concern that they would overtake because
right.
the armies of the Saracens, the armies of Saladin were incredibly powerful armies,
Yeah.
and the faith was powerful from that part of the world, and so it
Hmm.
was they were worried about losing the Christian European world. So
Right.
I mean, there's I see arguments from both sides because a lot of atrocities were committed on both sides. Of course, during the
Yeah.
Crusades, a lot of death. But you see why they sent people down there and said, I mean, you'll be accepted in heaven if you go and fight, for the
Yeah.
Pope, fight for
Right.
Christianity, right? So I miss having that idea, this powerful idea that you can attach to, like like I think about like going to like a football game and tailgating or something and seeing
Hmm.
like thousands of other people around and someone scores a touchdown and everyone's just like ah! And
Yeah.
then everyone does it at the same time, and you just have this feeling of connection, and that's kind of
Yeah.
what the part of religion I've always kind of felt left out about because I couldn't accept it because I'm just like I want to feel this fervor that everyone has, this feeling that you have this connective truth, and there's a
Yeah.
vein running within all of you,
Right.
that's that this allows you to see people on in a different wavelength and connect to them that way.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think that was really valuable, and so
Hmm.
to have and that connective spirit drove so many great moments in history. I mean, for better or for
Hmm.
worse.
Yeah.
And again, it brings us to where we are today, and to the language we speak, the values of the country that we're in, definitely come from that, come from religion. Even though obviously there's an incredibly important distinction to made between religion and state. The values of the state that we established, I think, are religious in nature, even
Yeah.
though we understood the importance of separating them.
Right.
And that's a
Yeah.
weird kind of thing to coexist, right?
Yeah.
But that's like the value of like I think an intelligence but also religious mind that knows that it's like a tool that can be used for evil, right, as well as for good.
Yeah.
you know
Yep.
do you think that religion as a whole is a better or worse force for humans?
Well, I don't know. There's people can use religion for bad, like you said.
Mm.
There's been many Christians, people who call themselves Christian over the course of history, who have done things that are not in line with Christian values.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah. And just rationalizing their own,
Right.
like human and animal behaviors, in
Right.
the context of God, but really it's just they're exercising their deepest animalistic desires,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then trying to rationalize it from that perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I mean,
yeah,
I think at its core, if you're just looking at what Christianity is supposed to be, I think it's overall, a good thing
yeah.
for the world and for individuals, for people, for us as a human race.
And for the future as well, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm, yeah, because we believe that the world is going to pass away
Yeah,
and be resurrected again at the second coming of Christ.
yeah, yeah. Any
So,
date on that? Any like put it in the calendar?
no.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, it's just it's gonna happen at some point. Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think I think I think I've noticed, even as whatever you can call myself an atheist, whatever. Even though I hate that term because it sounds like a religion these days.
Hmm.
But I think that I've noticed that as increasing rates of atheism are seen, especially in the Western world,
Yeah.
and Europe and the United States, I think that it is coincided with some kind of hedonistic behaviors. I think they're a little kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, it reminds me of times of excess in ancient Rome, like under like Elagabalus, where
Mm.
people started worshiping kind of again hedonistic behavior,
Yeah.
sex and drugs and
Right.
just kind of the Epicurean kind of goal of pleasure seeking above all else,
Yeah.
you know, and I feel like even though I think I like the growth of information and intelligence, I think
Yeah.
that most people need some kind of faith
Hmm.
because if they don't have it, they fill that faith, that vacuum of faith, which seems to be integral to most people's DNA. I feel like they fill it with something else, and
Yeah.
they believe it just as fervently as religious people believe what they believe, right?
Right.
And so they believe in celebrities, or they believe in politics of a kind, or they
Yeah.
believe in themselves, or they believe in again emotions, or they believe in the idea of sex as something almost like a religious experience, which I mean obviously it can be, but
Sure.
I mean it's like but you find the ritualistic, the faith seeking elements of yourself, and if you deny religion entirely, I feel like a lot of people, they can't just stare into the void, they have to believe in something.
Yeah.
And so you end up
Hmm.
believing in something that may or may not be something as wholesome. I don't
Yeah.
know. But
I think
where's
so.
that go?
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but I can say that with Christianity, in particular Orthodox Christianity and Catholicism, they've lately, within the past few years,
Yeah.
since COVID, we've seen a huge increase in converts in the
Yeah.
church. In my parish here,
You think it's growing?
it is.
Yeah.
It is. In my parish here, there have been 10 people baptized into the church this past year.
Yeah.
My priest says that's the most he's ever done in one year.
10 in a year?
Yep.
That's the most it's ever done? Wow.
At that particular parish,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
And that's talking about like adult conversion
Right.
baptism, not just babies.
Oh,
you know.
okay. Interesting.
Right, right.
So that's not included. So I was going to say that seemed like a small amount, but if they don't include babies,
Yeah,
I would assume that'd be a lot more if they include
right.
those. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's people deciding, making a conscious decision to be baptized. And so
Yep.
that's a serious thing in their eyes, I
hmm
suppose, and that is interesting.
And yeah, and that's a lot of parishes all over the country are seeing that kind of growth
Yeah.
from what
Yeah.
I've seen on the internet. Yeah.
There's like a whole reactionary movement, I think, against the soulless life that we have these days, and
Yeah,
not just in the
right.
religious sphere, but I mean, everything wants to go back to the earthy beginnings, and things that are natural,
Yeah.
and because man, we lived our life the same way as humans for 100 million years
hmm
basically, and then the last couple hundred, and then the last 20 or 30 especially have been so antithetical to everything that we lived before that it feels so unnatural that everything we do is unnatural
Right.
and I wouldn't say ugly, but just kind of not in tune with our biology. So
hmm
naturally, you're going to experience some discomfort with that.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus, and
People are
where do we go
seeking
from
meaning.
here?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, yeah. But I think that people will always need that faith. For me, I don't mind staring into the void because it's just for me that it just is,
hmm
and it's just comforting. I think that when you can look at it from the Ricky Gervais perspective, he always says like, well, it makes your life more beautiful because you know that there's nothing at the end of it, and that I don't know, it's still pretty terrifying. It still
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah.
But but it's how you deal with it, and it's how you kind of frame your life in the perspective of it is ending,
Sure.
and it's especially when your back starts to hurt and you feel that you're on the decline,
Right. hmm
and so I think, I don't know, I might find religion later in life. I certainly have not found it yet because I don't have that bone of faith in me.
Yeah.
I can't take something on faith. I just don't know how to do that. But it doesn't mean that I could never find it.
Of course. Of course. Yeah. Who
Because
knows?
you lost it for a little while, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't take it seriously. I don't think I ever fully committed to saying like, oh, I don't believe in anything supernatural.
Yeah.
But I wasn't thinking about it. It didn't matter to me for a long time. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's not to say that you won't be able to ever find faith if it's something that you end up wanting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the only
Yeah.
problem is my wife said she'd leave me if I ever got religious,
Ah.
and I was like, so that kind of precludes that a little bit,
Okay,
But I don't
okay.
think she does. She's not serious, but I mean, it's definitely something that we, I guess, found a commonality on. We both,
Right.
even though we came from it from different perspectives. She from a religious upbringing, and me from my parents just didn't give a shit. I mean, they were religious. But they didn't bother sending me to church,
Yeah.
because they had other things to do, and on a Sunday especially, like drink and stuff, But so it just wasn't a priority, But
Yeah.
and maybe my life would have turned out differently if they had, But you can't think of things like that, But I like to look at, I like to read religion, objectively for the stories, and I think the stories, a lot of them are valuable. Some of them I'm a little bit lost on the value of,
Like what?
I mean, okay, so I'm trying. I mean, and as much as I didn't prepare for this because of the recent, life change I've had, I would say the one where like the kids are making fun of the bald guy, and then God sends a bear to like eat the kids because they're making fun of the bald guy. I was like, is there anything deeper than just don't make fun of bald guys here?
Huh. I'm not familiar with this story.
I gotta pull it up. All right, I'm gonna do it while we're talking, just
All right.
because you'll know what it means based on when I type it. All right, so
Okay.
let's go ahead and say kids making fun of bald guy in the Bible, so God kills them with a bear.
Well, this is in the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 2 Kings chapter 2.
Okay.
So God sent bears to kill 40 children for making fun of a bald man. It's let's see, it's in the story of Elijah and Elisha, I think.
Uh-huh.
But it was part of a nursery rhyme thing, and
Huh.
so Alicia got teased by a nursery rhyme by kids singing a nursery rhyme about how he was bald, and then in a fit of rage he curses the children, and God sends 2 giant bears to tear the children to pieces.
Huh.
But anyways, maybe it's just like be kind to your neighbor, even as a child,
Could be as simple as that.
as simple as that, which I think, I mean, as I read, some excerpts from the New Testament, I do think that that is a lot more relatable New Testament, I think, than the Old Testament, because the Old Testament, of course, obviously been translated many, 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 many times, and it comes from the ethos of a very old world that is very foreign to our own, and I think that trying to apply modern morals to it or even just modern perspective to it is a bit. You're missing the point, and you're missing
hard.
that people were very different back then.
Yeah.
And these rules may not make sense, and some of them might translate to modern time, but a lot of them just do not. But that's like the whole argument of like the Second Amendment thing, where they're like, well, the founders just had muskets, I mean, so
Yeah.
like they didn't think we'd have assault rifles, when they were writing it, but
Yeah.
which to that it's like the musket was the most advanced weapon of the day, and they wanted people to have them, so
Right.
something to be said for that. I mean, I should be able to have an M1 Abrams tank in my backyard, because that's the most advanced weapons of the day.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think of anarcho-capitalism?
Anarcho-capitalism.
Like complete lack of governments,
Yeah.
disputes solved either by arbitration
Oh.
or by force between private parties.
Well, yeah, I think anarcho-capitalism. Yeah, it's better than anarcho-communism.
Trying to think how that would work. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah. I guess that would just be like the pure notion of communism as in a commune, which is kind of impossible at scale. It would just be everyone working together, in a community, which is nice in a community of 20, 30 people who
Right.
can. But at scale, it just it falls apart. But yeah, with anarcho-capitalism, it's just like there is no governments.
Yeah,
There's just people protecting their own homes,
Right.
and their own business.
That's like
Yeah.
the extreme end of libertarianism, I
Yeah,
guess, right?
yeah. Like the logical conclusion at the
Right.
very ends, which
Right.
is just, like James Madison said, if all men were angels, no government would be necessary. But
Yeah.
imagine if we were just like, who cares? Get off my property. I mean, yeah. But I think that there's a reason why we ended up with the system we have, because it's the easiest. It requires the least amount of getting eaten or killed, on a regular basis.
That is true, I
Yeah.
guess, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. When it comes to politics, I kind of always felt like we got to have some sort of government.
Yeah.
Limited, but I guess I probably am more on the libertarian side.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, no, me too. Registered libertarian.
nice.
I mean, not because I feel like realistically a libertarian is going to win an election anytime soon or ever with the dominance of the two-party system, but more as like a protest vote. I mean, I think that the less people who align themselves with the two major parties, the better we'll be off, for at least with some kind of a plurality, which is it possible? I mean, right now it's unlikely. The party systems are so entrenched in how the elections work.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the Democratic Party a little more so entrenched just because of their system of superdelegates, and the way they caucus is so is so biased to the extent that the convention can decide whoever they want us to be their candidate, and so you can at least have some wild cards, like obviously Trump we've seen recently, some wild cards come in and shake things up, with the Republican side. But either way, it's poison, and they never wanted it to devolve into two parties, but it happened very quickly.
Oh yeah.
Very quickly. I mean, because the question was always, states' rights or a strong federal government, and we've never really been able to solve that ever since, except we basically went for the strong federal government. So
yeah,
Hamilton won,
right?
Basically,
Yeah.
Even he didn't win the duel, but he did win the arguments in that sense.
He
I saw his grave at the Trinity Church off of Wall Street.
Really?
So that was cool. Yeah, we went down there.
Okay.
Had dinner right off of Wall Street. This little place called Delmonico's, right next to New York Stock Exchange.
Well, how was Delmonico's? You
sucked ass.
Did it?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a $300 dinner, right?
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay. Like, I've made better steaks, man. Like, it was a little chewy,
Oh, shit.
It was the worst meal I had while I was there.
Wow.
I mean, it was okay, but in the context of $300, it sucked, But everything else in New York was fantastic. I loved everything I saw there. The Met was amazing. We spent 7 hours in the Met.
Nice.
Everybody ran out of batteries in my phone taking pictures. We had to leave because my wife's feet were dead, and I was taking pictures as she was dragging me out the door. It was incredible, man. And I was almost out, then I saw the arms and armor section, and I just went and oh my God. The things they have there.
Oh, yeah.
They've got Henry VIII's fat parade armor and stuff, and with this fully gilded, beautiful stuff. They've got Tiffany decorated guns.
Yeah,
you seen that with the jewels and the silver and thing on like that. I mean, they got wheel lock rifles from the 15th century like that.
Wow.
Just, I mean, stuff of kings, that we can just look at now. But beautiful art. I mean, the Egyptian collection was especially incredible,
Oh, yes. I love that part, too.
Yeah. Those boats. Did you see, the boats with the little figures and stuff in them?
Yep.
Those are, 4,000 years old, but
That's crazy.
They look like they just came out yesterday,
Right.
Oh, my God. It was glorious. But, yeah, I love New York. I'm going back.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
It's my new favorite city.
Great.
But I think we got to wrap things up.
Okay.
Brick, all right. It has been an absolute pleasure, and
Yes.
I'm going to miss you.
I miss you too, Ben.
I miss working with you. And
too.
who said you could say my real name? All right, so this is Benny. All right.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, but I'm gonna miss you in New York, and I am gonna visit you. But
Awesome.
Yeah. This has been wonderful, and I appreciate you being my first guest.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Hopefully someday we'll have you on again.
Yeah. I'd love to.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Smashed you into the microphone.
Sorry.
And there it is, folks.